Well, I know it's quiet right now. I know it's not necessarily, active in terms of the college football sphere, but I have it on authority that not only spring practices going to be starting up, well, some of them already have, that being Air Force, but I would imagine that some major conferences are going to be starting their spring practice here not too much longer. It is late February, so hopefully not too much longer, and we'll be getting actual spring practice info and things like that. So hopefully that does happen because it's going to be honest, it's kind of lonely, if you will, as I adjust my mic here. Welcome in for Verticals Podcast, episode 73. How about that? 73 of these shows. Not so much on YouTube. We recently just started doing that, the YouTube side a while ago. If you will, not too much of a while ago, but definitely some time since then. We started, I think, in October, September. We've been doing Spotify for a very long time. So welcome into the show. Welcome in. We were a little bit late on the schedule, if you will. Usually we do these a little bit more earlier, but figured some stuff came up, needed to move the show around. No big deal. We'll have a show on Thursday. We may do something special Friday, maybe another episode on Friday, maybe something even tomorrow. Who knows? Just stay tuned, if you will. Anyway, let's actually get into the show here. Episode 73. Not too much longer, we'll be at the 100 mark. So, episode slightly, we're getting closer and closer, but won't be too much longer until we get to the coveted 100 episode. So, if you haven't noticed, there was a big article that came out this weekend from Ross Dellinger, not necessarily a friend of the program, necessarily, as I'm plugging in my laptop here. So bear with me as I do that. But Ross Dellinger, somewhat friend of the program, put out an article this weekend about sort of the future of the college football playoff. Now, we know sort of my stance as I move my laptop around here. My overall stance on playoff expansion, the whole expanded playoff here, the 12-team playoff, was never a fan of it. Like some people, was never over the moon necessarily about expanding the playoff, going to 12 teams, sort of, eliminating the scarcity and the urgency, if you will, in the regular season to one of your games. And now you can lose 2 games, 3 games. You're still in it. Whatever. All of us comfortable, I guess, traditionalists can eat it, I guess, and sort of deal with it. But I think we all knew that the cultural playoff expansion was not done. Like there was talk even this time last year, them going, 16 teams, 14 teams. And for someone like me, that's tough because I don't want to go back. I want to go back to like the 14 playoff or the two teams only, like the BCS era. I would want to go back to that, but knowing how things work and, certain facets of the real world business, there's no such thing as going back. Like, you can't necessarily go back to anything. Like, if you keep on expanding something, like, for example, we'll just use a building, construction, if you will. Once you build something and you expand like a building or whatever, or a piece of road, very hard to go back on it. You can't shrink a building down unless you just flat out destroy it. But you can keep expanding it. That's college football playoff. But there's no avenue where I know Josh Pig talked about it ad nauseum on Sunday and multiple times throughout the years. Them decreasing the field is never going to happen. They're not going to decrease it. It's only going to be increasing the next time every so years. And what's been sort of transpiring behind the scenes because of that, the 12-team playoff, if you haven't noticed, is only available until 2026. So next year, this coming up playoff is it for the 12-team playoff. And after that, that's a bit of a mystery. Well, the mystery has been decloned, or declosed, if you will, by Ross Dellinger. And it's kind of spells out that, yes, an expanded playoff is coming. But the people who are making decisions, the folks behind the wheel of this expansion and, having automatic bids, if you will, for the SEC and the Big Ten getting 4 teams each, is those 2 conferences. They're the ones who are making the decisions, which shouldn't surprise you. I mean, those are the ones that have certainly the most pull. Tony DePitti, the commissioner of the Big Ten, Greg Sankey of the SEC, Like, those are the two most powerful men of all college sports. That's just the way it is right now. I mean, I don't know what else to say. Unless you're some alien or someone who is a casual flyby, you probably don't know that. But yes, the Big Ten, the SEC clearly have a lot of pull. This Rouse Dellinger report just kind of puts out there to the public that this is clearly what it is. They do, and the stipulations have been put out in this report that the SEC and the Big Ten are going to have major, if not all, the input on the playoff expansion going forward. Makes sense if you know where the sport's going with conference expansion. This sort of AFC NFC model that's probably unfortunately coming. I'll give you guys my personal thoughts on that, but a AFC NFC model probably coming, and it's already here. I mean, it already is. It's no longer with the major conferences, the Power Five. It's the P4. Technically, the Super 2, really, if you really want to look at it. I mean, the gap in between the ACC, mostly the Big 12, is mostly closer to the G5. I guess if you really want to go real specific, the Big 12 is essentially a glorified G5, not only because they have sort of been victimized by the other conferences expanding and whatnot, but because they've added in other G5 teams or former G5s like Houston. I guess BYU sort of a former G5, but they're a lesser independent. Cincinnati, schools like that. I mean, you have the two Arizona schools, and so yes, they are sort of a quasi glorified G5. The ACC probably a bit better because they have bigger brands, at least at the moment. With Florida State, Miami, Virginia Tech, Clemson. So the gap between the ACC and the Big 12 and the G5 is it's a little more closer with the Big 12 and the G5. The ACC has sort of kind of in their own category, and the Big 10 SEC sort of on their own. And that makes sense based on where the power is in college football. And unfortunately, for someone like me and people like Josh Payne and me who don't like expansion, who don't like this going to a NFL type model, I've always wanted college football to be separate from the NFL. I can enjoy both. As a Buccaneers fan, I like the NFL model. I don't want college football to be mirroring it. I don't want it to be copying it necessarily, at least in the ways I don't want it to, like, expanding the playoff and, adding, less and less urgency to the regular season and not really making it, a regular season game anymore. Because the NFL, mostly not a regular season game, perhaps. It's all focused on what? The Super Bowl and the playoffs. Not same with the NBA. I mean, outside of, the random trades or maybe like a random high scoring game or a player shooting 60 points in a game, the NBA and the NFL are mostly postseason sports. The NCAA basketball right now, even though this season has been pretty good, a lot of the big matchups and stuff. You have Auburn, Alabama, 1 versus 2, a number of matchups involving top 10 teams of conference expansion. But NCAA basketball, college basketball, men's basketball, and even the women's basketball is a postseason sport. It's not regular season sport. I don't think a lot of folks are watching Houston versus Arizona State on a Tuesday night versus watching the NCAA tournament or the conference tournaments. And that's fine for that sport. But for college football has sort of hinged on or sort of been able to hold on for the longest time, having urgency in the regular season. Like, think about this, friends. If 2010 Auburn lost a game that can't be on that team, let's say they lost to Bama. Let's say Bama in the alternate universe, going full Dr. Strange here, alternate timeline, that Auburn Cam Newton team, 2010 Auburn team, they lose to Alabama. Bama, Nick Saban, they don't give up the 24-0 lead. They just win the game by whatever score. Auburn that year would have, all intents and purposes, probably been out of the playoff. Oregon would have still been there. I know TCU was undefeated that year, 13-0 regular season. Or actually, no, it would have been 12-0. Probably, there was certainly debate there, but still, the urgency for Auburn would have been still pretty high, right? They had to win every single game to get to the national championship game, more likely. And I think that urgency is starting to go away, and it sort of went away with the 12-team, certainly went away with the 12-team playoff. Didn't necessarily go away the 14 playoff, though. I still didn't like it, but I can bear it because it was 4 teams, and those spots were still coveted. But then you get the expanded playoff, and all of a sudden it's like, oh man, you lose 2 games or 3 games. Oh, doesn't matter. There's an escape hatch or a parachute, no emergency, and just sort of devaluing the regular season and have the auto bids and the potential for, games to have, rivalry games to have sequels and threequels and a trilogy of games, like the issue that Josh Pay brought up last summer and spring about the potential of, Michigan, Ohio State playing each other 3 or 4 times potentially in a full schedule, including postseason, which I don't like. I think that's weird. And the NFL is different because you're used to it. But in college football, I know the NFL types will say, oh, well, NFL does it. You should deal with it. Well, as a college football fan and a NFL fan, I don't want the sports to copy each other in every single thing. Now, there are some things the NFL does do, with they're keeping the NFL sort of zeitgeist going 24/7, 365 with, regular season, postseason, trade deadlines, and free agency happening. And then you have schedule release. Then you have the draft, and you have the offseason training and stuff like that. That's fun, and that's something I think college football should bring in if a commissioner were to ever come in, proper commissioner. But that's not like that right now. College football, the schedule's horrible. Just the fact that it feels that, but it really shouldn't feel that, because there's always news like this, and there's always opportunities to talk about things. But I just, even with this expanding, it's not going to stop at 16. It's not going to stop at 14. It's going to keep on going probably. I mean, 32 teams, 64, getting close to college basketball level territory. Like, I hopefully that doesn't happen. But either one or two things going to happen. Either this thing is going to stop at some point, which is more likely than it decreasing, which is not going to happen. That's like a point millimeter or like a point, like a millipoint of happening. So that's basically 0. It's either going to stop, expansion's going to stop, or it's going to keep on going. So there's really 2 options there, not 3. But there is a silver lining here, and this is something that Josh Pate brought up, and sort of a lot of folks have brought up, that this new model that's out there right now, out on the public, and probably isn't going to happen, again, given how much pull the SEC and Big Ten have, that it will eliminate some problems like the auto bids and making it so a committee doesn't have to, literally look over the teams and make personal decisions, and someone's left out or whatever. There's no drama, and there's really no use now if this. I think Bud Elliott was spot on about this yesterday on Cover 3. That there's no use for a committee or that stupid show on ESPN on Tuesdays in November that no one really watches. I'm sure their viewership ratings are probably pretty low. No use for that anymore, because unless you want to speculate, which I'm sure they're going to still keep the show, but they're going to probably just speculate about the playoff bracket and whatnot. There's no real drama anymore, because you have the SEC getting four bids, Big Ten getting 4 because they're distributed 2 conferences, and they're huge conferences now. ACC, Big 12 probably get 1 or 2, probably 2, which is lucky, frankly. I know someone who cares about those 2 conferences. I don't think they deserve 2. Probably the ACC, probably more for the Big 12 because of the brand exposure, and those talent level teams don't necessarily scream playoff, but whatever. I'm cool with it. G5 gets 1, and then there's other spots for other teams, SEC teams, probably Big Ten teams. So at least it eliminates the drama. The committee basically becomes defunct at that point. Honestly, it should probably at that point just go away. But personally, I'm not a fan of it. But that also means to have this new model that conference championship games probably go away. And that was already awkward. Now the 12-team playoff, it's horrible, if you ask me. But yeah, there's some good, there's some bad, these changes. And here, I'm not dissing Ross Dellinger either. This is probably extreme. Hell, Josh Pate's been talking about this happening in this whole scenario for, years now. If you've been watching a show as long as I have, that this was going to happen. And unfortunately, it's here. And again, there's some positives, but there's also a lot of negatives too. So that's it for college football playoff talk on this episode. A little bit of a shorter show today. Don't expect me to be going for that long. I've been having to eat dinner. Been busy all day, so I'm gonna get some water real quick, and then we'll move on to our 2 topics left. So I'll be right back. By the way, since we're sort of deep in the show now, about 15 minutes, first of all, welcome in. We do college football, Marvel, Star Wars talk, Buccaneer stuff during the season and during when it's appropriate. Welcome in for Verticals Podcast. Again, like I mentioned at the beginning, if you happen to catch us in the middle of this or need a reminder, we've been doing this for almost a year now. 73 episodes in. Again, we talk about college football, Marvel, Star Wars news, and Buccaneers. We do shows on twice a week. May do a special show tomorrow. We'll see. Keep on tabs on the old socials. But just do show Thursday. Now, next week is where it gets a little weird because I have some stuff going on. I may be pre-recording a show or two. We'll see. If not, then there won't be any shows next week. So that I don't want to talk. That's not that there's something to talk about. It's just there's some dynamics that are coming into play that I may not be able to do a show properly. But yeah, we do a show here usually twice a week, perhaps even more. So welcome in. Make sure you subscribe, like the stream, follow us on Twitter, and make sure to follow us as well on Spotify. I know I've been behind on the Spotify uploads, which is my fault. Should have been more on top of that. But yeah, we've been doing this. It's been a lot of fun, and we'll continue to do this. And we have a lot of things planned. We have predictions versus reality, spring reports, spring practices going on. I guess that'll be happening. Then by the time May comes around, we'll be doing record projections, and that should be a lot of fun as well. So a lot of things happening in a short amount of time. It may seem quiet right now, metaphorically, but things are coming. And in the words of the great Brian O'Brien from Pineville on radio up there in Kentucky, be prepared for what is coming. And for college football, that is the season, which is 24/7, 365. But spring practice is coming. Second portal, spring transfer window is coming. So a lot of things are happening. Very excited about that. And we got some topics too. I think later this week we'll have some interesting topics, if you will, for a rainy day, if you will. We'll be raining in Jacksonville tomorrow. I have that on good authority. But anyway, so Captain America Brave New World came out last Friday, technically internationally before here in the U.S., but it came out Thursday night, Friday. Sure, all of you guys have had time to see it. The critic ratings, we went over this last week. It's not good. Some of the vibes are not good. Of course, the reshoots and the title change and sort of clips they've been putting out, Marvel has, about this movie. The marketing behind it has been pretty piss poor, if you ask me, at least in the clip releasing standpoint. Well, a few things have come out. Of course, the movie's out, so there's that. One of them is the cinema score, which is sort of the best way I can sort of describe it, is sort of a qualitative, make sure I get this right, qualitative sort of survey. Give some info, after folks see the movie. This is like an opening weekend, hey, how did you like it? What did you think? Sort of gives like an aggregated numerical, or in this case, a letter result, a grade, based on what the vibe is. Again, this is all qualitative data. As someone who's in a qualitative class right now in my grad program, it's kind of up over what I'm actually doing right now. And that, so based on this qualitative data, Captain America Brave New World has the lowest cinema score of any MCU movie. I laugh at that because I can't believe we're actually here. The score is a B-, which is insane to think about because we had Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which is probably the worst movie. I think a lot of people would say the worst movie of the MCU of its entire catalog. But my goodness, B- for a movie that, yes, went through the reshoots and whatnot, and had the title change and the marketing and whatnot was pretty strange. B- is pretty bad. Now, it may not seem bad because most of you are used to numerical or alphabetical grades being applied to school right now, right? You have school grades and whatnot. You think, oh, a B-, that's not horrible, right? Well, in the world of movies, a B- may as well be an F, and that's horrible. That's pretty bad. That has never happened before for any Marvel film. And like I mentioned, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Wasp. Quantumania was the worst one. I think it was like a B plus, I believe. But this is worse. This is by far the worst. You also had some stuff coming from a Vulture article that came out, ironically, the day the movie comes out. That also happened, sort of talking about, the tenseness of the production of the film, and some people even saying, quote, they were being quoted saying that, oh yeah, we knew this movie's going to fail. We were making it. Which is pretty jarring to hear that, but frankly, I mean, if the movie was good, I don't think any of this would be coming out, like this article and the audience ratings and the Rotten Tomatoes scores. Like, if this movie was good, none of this negativity would be around it. Like, the reshoots weren't going on, the title change, and all this stuff happening, and it's like articles like this that you're getting from Vulture. And look, their sources they're not dumb. I'm sure they have good sources, but none of this stuff would be coming out if the movie was good. Sort of the same thing applies for college football news, right? If you get, a bad college football team, think back to Auburn back in 2022 with Brian Harsin. If the team was good, or actually, go back to 2021 with the supposed scandal of Brian Harsin and Auburn. If Auburn went 10-2 that year in 2021, or they went like 8-4, 10-2, 9-3, none of that stuff would have been happening. You wouldn't be hearing all this negative press about Brian Harsin and Auburn. Same goes for Captain America: Brave New World. If the movie was actually good and there was no reshoots and the title change and a lot of this other controversy, none of these articles from the Vulture coming out talking about, or at least them interviewing disgruntled members of the production team saying, oh man, we knew this movie was going to suck, we were making it. None of that would be happening if the film was actually good. But here we are. And let me just say this too, just up front here while we're talking about this movie. How hard is it to make a good movie, Marvel? I mean, I know you guys don't have idiots running the company. Like, Kevin Feige is pretty smart, right? He's one of the best film producers, at least in my lifetime. But my goodness, like, how many times you guys have to make mediocre product just, heck, it's on par basically with what DC's been putting out. And that's not even, I don't have much joy in saying that, but like, how hard is it to put out just an average movie? Like, Captain America: Brave New World should not have been this bad based on the critic rating, the audience ratings. I know people are, parading around, may as well be holding a ticker tape parade saying, oh man, the audience rating is 82%. That's not the flex you think it is. That's not the Marvel standard. And frankly, even making this movie, or heck, any movie, you're not building the Burj Khalifa. You're not building the World Trade Center. This should have been this hard to figure this out. Not to mention, too, the marketing was, skewed towards the Red Hulk, and it makes sense, right? I don't think a Captain America movie with Anthony Mackie being the lead wasn't going to sell much tickets. And I think the inner projections and the internal numbers from Disney and Marvel probably were suggesting that. So that's why they leaned heavily into the Red Hulk and the marketing. Which, again, if I were in their shoes and someone who's have privilege to have meetings with, marketing and social media teams in terms of, how to get your brand out there, heck, I would have done the same thing. Doesn't make me feel good about it because we know I guess in some cases lying and saying, oh, the Red Hulk is going to be a feature part of this movie, though he's in the movie for like 12 minutes. So even that's weird, but still, it's like, it shouldn't be this hard to even put an average movie out there from Marvel, and they haven't. Now, in terms of like the implications of this, like, everyone's talking about, Anthony Mackie's future, Sam Wilson's future as Captain America in terms of him being prominently featured in movies going forward. I don't think that's going to change, though I will say, with, Secret Wars coming up in Doomsday, with variants being a big thing, alternate versions of, the Steve Rogers Captain America, and of course, Robert Downey Jr. come back as Dr. Doom. I just don't know if, we'll see the projections this weekend, if it's going to have, an Ant-Man and the Wasp level fall off. I don't know I don't know for sure if it's going to or not. There's certainly a chance. But my goodness, I just don't know if the Sam Wilson character, the fact that they had to pivot towards Red Hulk being the featured, prominent marketing tool of this movie, and at least going that direction, to me doesn't spell confidence. It spells a lack thereof, if you will. And if people really believe that the Sam Wilson character as Captain America should be leading the Avengers, does this movie sell you that? Like, does it actually scream to you, this character, deserves to lead the Avengers. I don't think so. And the fact that it won't be making a whole lot of money. The critical reception's pretty trash. I don't know if it's going to work or not. I don't know. I hate to say that. I'm nothing against Anthony Mackie. He's a good actor. He's been good in a lot of stuff, and I'm sure that this doesn't feel good knowing that your movie's been not hitting with the critics. It's probably going to make a whole lot of money. It's not going to be necessarily considered a major hit in terms of breaking even. But yeah, weird spot for Marvel right now. And I was listening. We'll move on here to the predictions versus reality here, but I was listening to Jeff Snyder and John Roca on Thursday because they have their podcast on Thursday nights, and Jeff Snyder brought this up. So even though there's been excitement for Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four, which is, I guess, on the positive side of things, at least there's other projects, Doomsday, Secret Wars, Fantastic Four. At least those will have more experienced film directors and better production teams. But even Jeff Snyder, even with Thunderbolts looking good so far, based on the marketing, even he's like, even though the marketing may be pretty good, I'm paraphrasing Snyder here, but even he's starting to put out there, hey, I'm not hearing good things about Thunderbolts either. And that was shocking to me last week when he said that. So I'm like, wow, that's pretty jarring to hear that. So, and he was spot on with the Captain America stuff. So I think a lot of you guys who were saying, oh, Jeff's a liar or whatever, my apology, because he was spot on. And I think it ended up proving to be a pretty disappointing movie. And below the Marvel standard. Like I mentioned last week, Marvel and Clemson football are kind of the same right now. And Marvel's window of opportunity, and then we'll move on here, to at least get back or to at least get back to the levels they were before 2020 and the previous decade. That window's closing, much like Clemson's time to get back to where they were pre-2020 as well. That window's starting to close, and I think Marvel, ever so slowly, they're not there yet, but with any more fails coming into the next few projects, the more and more they sort of begin to diverge away from their sort of hot streak, if you will, back in the late 2010s. They're starting to get closer and closer to Star Wars, which, Star Wars is what has been lost for a number of years. Like outside of the Filoni stuff, it's directionless, and they have Star Wars Celebration. We'll be covering it. We'll be covering all the announcements and stuff, but no one's really talking about Celebration. That's coming up in a number of weeks or whatever, like the beginning of April. So, it's tough right now. Even as a fan of Marvel, it sucks, but there should be supposedly good stuff coming up, but according to Jeff Snyder, apparently Thunderbolts is not looking too much better either, but supposedly that's coming from him. But then again, he's pretty experienced. And he was spot on with his reporting for Brave New World. So, the implications here for this movie, we'll see what the numbers look like after this weekend. Hoping it doesn't drop off significantly, but I have a sneaking suspicion it might. And it might be getting close to Quantumania level of drop-off, but we'll see. Hopefully I'm wrong, but it's looking that way. I don't have much joy in saying that either. Okay, so we've been doing this for the past couple of shows, or not even that, past couple of weeks. Predictions versus reality. And the next two teams up here, as I go to my list, are Oklahoma and Iowa. I think, did we do these the last week? Let me go check. My notes are all over the place with this. I'm pretty sure we did. Did we do these last week or not? I don't know. Let me just double check here. We're doing some research on the fly here. That was episode 72. Okay, so no, we are doing Oklahoma and Iowa. Actually, let me get some water real quick here, and then we'll move on to the next predictions versus reality. So yes, it is Oklahoma and Iowa. So I was correct on that. Just getting the correct records here, just to make sure we're accurate. Because I'm pretty sure we were actually got a really good read on both of these teams. That's shocking, if you will, because it's pretty hard to do. But if you got a few of these right, in terms of our predictions versus reality segments, so that's good. Okay, so predictions versus reality. Again, this is just us looking back at our projections from the past summer. At least this year, when we do our record projections, will be sort of spring/summer, because we'll start these around Memorial Day or at the very earliest May. But we did these last summer when we first started the show. That our record projections for about 32 teams. Don't do all of them because they'll honestly take forever. But the next two up here are Oklahoma and Iowa. And our record projections for, I guess we'll do Oklahoma first. Or actually, no, let's do Iowa first, actually, because Oklahoma one's actually, I want to save that. So Iowa, best case scenario for them was 11-1 based on their schedule. It was a very manageable schedule. No Ohio State, I believe, if I recall correctly. Let me double check here. Okay, so lied. They do have Ohio. Did have Ohio State, but that's kind of it. They had no Michigan, no Penn State, no Oregon. That's it. Very manageable schedule. So they had Ohio State only. So that was like their toughest game of the year. That was the only one game they were guaranteed to basically lose. Well, they lost to Iowa State, which no shame in that. Iowa State was a very good team last year. Michigan State, UCLA, Missouri, reasonable enough, but 8-4 was their final regular season record. What we had, going back to our team previews here, their best case scenario was again 11-1. That obviously didn't hit. Worst case scenario was 6-6. That didn't happen. But our most reasonable was actually 10-2. So they were actually more behind, if you will, if there were our actual projection versus what they actually ended up doing. So sort of in between a worst case and their worst case and was reasonable, being 8-4, which is not horrible. But some of those losses, man, you go back and look at their schedule. I think a lot of people will kind of forget this. Losing to Iowa State, again, no real shame there. Same with Ohio State. Michigan State and UCLA, that boggles the mind. They had 2 games away. I mean, the UCLA game was at least close. Michigan State and Aiden Childs and company, and Jonathan Smith, they come in and they won by 12. I totally forgot that. I think I did actually watch that game. But they were just 2 sort of weird blips on the radar games away from being about where our record projection was, 10-2, 9-3. So how about that? So that one was sort of close. Of course, this year, Iowa, if I check their schedule properly, of course, they changed their offense last year. Tim Lesser comes in. Of course, Kirk Ferentz is still there, very experienced head coach. Not the biggest fan of him per se in terms of his style of football, but look, he's been there for a long time, almost 30 years now. He's 3 years away. Phil Parker, by the way, his longtime DC, he's been there for 10 years plus. Very good. Their schedule, by the way, next year, so they play an FCS team to begin at Iowa State. UMass may as well be an FCS team. At Rutgers, this is in order too. Their schedule's been released, so all the dates and everything all correct. Indiana, at Wisconsin. But here's the thing. They do not this year avoid Penn State, Oregon, and USC. So there's 2 losses there probably guaranteed. They're both at Iowa City. Though I will say, you do not want to play Iowa City, or you do not want to play in Iowa City at night. That's for sure. You don't want to play there at night. It's a very tough environment there. We've seen a lot of good teams lose there. Penn State years back. Think Ohio State, 2017, I believe, circa 2017. Of course, they have the hospital there, Children's Hospital, which is pretty cool too. If the tradition of waving during the 4th quarter, I believe, 2nd quarter, one of those 2. But I've always wanted to go there too. A very random place I've always wanted to go to, Kansas Stadium. But hopefully for Penn State and Oregon's sake, that it's not a night game and it's a noon game. So, but those are your toughest games. You have to go on the road to USC too. So, but hey, at least you get to avoid Ohio State. But yeah. So Iowa, we were kind of close with, but this next one, boy, we were dead on with this one in terms of the worst case scenario. So Oklahoma, last year they won 6-6. Guess what our worst case scenario was? Well, exact same, 6-6. So right on the money with their worst case. Reasonable was aimed for, spot on. Best case, 9-3, spot on. I think we correctly read Oklahoma. I think I even said this back in the summer when, Brent Venables got his contract extension, that I thought it was going to be safe this year, regardless of the record. You're still safe, then get fired. They, being Oklahoma, start up 3-0, very sloppy 3-0 start. Lost to Tennessee. No shame there. Beat Auburn on the road for backup quarterback after you benched Jackson Arnold. Ironically, the team he would be playing for, at least this year, he's on the roster. If you don't remember, yes, he did transfer over. Get demolished by Texas, get demolished by South Carolina. Ugh. Lose to Ole Miss, be an FCS team. Cool. Close against Missouri, wild game, by the way. Also a rivalry game. Beat Bama, so at least there's one little positive, thinking on that side of the realm. Lose to LSU, and then you lose the bowl game. So 6-6, regular season, spot on. Quarterback play was pretty bad. Defense was good enough, I guess, in some of those games. Good enough. They made some changes there. Brent is now calling the plays. They basically have they really didn't make that much changes with the coaching staff, at least to my they just promoted some guys, and Venables will be calling the plays, which kind of makes sense to me. He's a defensive guy. He may as well go down. I mean, look, I don't have much joy in saying this, but there's pressure in Norman. There certainly is. There's pressure with Venables and that staff there. I'm not going to sit here and say they're like the most likely job to open up, but there's certainly some teams and some programs that are coaches who are definitely on a lot of pressure. Hugh Freeze being one, Brent Venables being one, Billy Napier, Mark Stoops at Kentucky, Sam Pittman at Arkansas. But there's definitely a lot of pressure in Norman right now for Oklahoma and Brent Venables. And if he's going to go down, and this is where the path where it's going to go, and he's may not survive this year, he's at least going to go down calling and doing things the way he's going to do it, which is his specialty, which is calling defense. And he's a really good defensive coordinator. Of course, you bring in Ben Arbuckle from Washington State. You bring in John Mateer. Should be good, but still a lot of mystery with Mateer. Of course, a little bit different with Cam Ward, because with Cam Ward, we had a pretty reasonable sample size with Mateer. It's not that large of a sample size, but he is following his old OC, so it makes it sort of doable. I just don't worry about that staff up there. It sucks. I like Brent Venables as a D coordinator. He seems like a smart guy, but the offense last year with losing Jeff Lebby just wasn't good enough. And looking at Venables' history, it's 6-7. Ironically, his first year, 10-3. Life's trending up, right? And you go back down to 6-7 this year, or this past year. And their schedule, by the way, is pretty tough. It's one of the toughest in the conference, and that's saying a lot because Florida's is the toughest. But look at this one for OU if you haven't checked it out yet. So to play FCS team, Michigan comes to town. Rare Michigan appearance, probably on ABC on ABC, because again with the new TV deals and stuff, Michigan will be having a regular season game on ESPN. Probably ABC, I've had to imagine. So there's that. You go on the road to Temple, so that's cool to get a non-conference road trip. Probably has to do with alumni. Massive alumni base there, probably in Philadelphia. So that's cool. Nothing wrong with that. Weird, but whatever. You get host to Auburn. So they come to town. Former quarterback, former starter, probably coming into Gaylor Family Stadium or Gaylor Family Oklahoma Memorial Stadium. They get a Kent State G5, the neutral site game at the Cotton Bowl in Dallas. Thankfully, it's still being played there, not at the other Cotton Bowl Stadium, the newer one. The schedule is basically just the same as last year's, but the venues change, the exception of the Texas game. But and in Michigan, and the same schedule from last year, LSU, Bama, Ole Miss, Tennessee. Interesting enough, all those three of those games are in a row. So it's Ole Miss, at Tennessee, at Bama, back-to-back weeks. Lied. There's a bye week in between Tennessee and Bama, but that's tough, man. That's really tough. And with the staff that's in some trouble, things are not trending the right direction. Though we'll say, though, and I say this with very cautious optimism. Like Josh Pate has said in the past and has said before, that progress is not always linear. Like progress is not what you see in like College Bowl 25. It's not, the bar graph, if you will. If you go look at your coaching contract, it's, up and down, or, it's not necessarily, trending up all the time. It's, up and down, up and down, up and down. And unfortunately, with this new one in college football, you usually give, or at least in the past, you would have given a guy like Brent Venables a couple of years to figure it out. But again, it's a high profile job. It's, you give 3 years, Hugh Freeze, same thing at Auburn, and Bill Napier at Florida. It's 3 to 4 years, get it figured out, then we'll fire you. He's entering his 4th year. It's been very inconsistent. And I will admit that I don't like seeing guys getting fired. I've said that before. I'm one of the last people, at least in this industry, to just flat out just say, yeah, this guy needs to be fired. He's an idiot. He's stupid. I won't call you that, but I will at least acknowledge, yes, there is a lot of hot seat talk with Brent Venables. Yes, there's some folks who believe he won't be back or he won't make it towards the end of the year. I'm not going that far, but I do acknowledge that there was pressure there. There's an emphasis to get things going in the right direction, but their season last year was rough, man. It was not a good year for them, and very rare to see Oklahoma in a span of 3 years get two losing seasons like that. So that's your predictions versus reality. I gotta go have dinner, and someone's calling me. They should know that they should not call me while I'm doing my show. So I gotta do that. Gotta get this sent out. Gotta have some dinner. So until Thursday, perhaps tomorrow. I'll let you guys know we're back on when we're doing a show, but for sure we'll be back Thursday, and then we'll see with the other dates. So until next time we see each other, this is Four Verticals Podcast, episode 73 comes to a close. Have a good rest of your Tuesday evening. Take care, and we'll see you next time.